Good afternoon, everyone. Fellow citizens and friends, allow me to welcome you to Old Bethpage Village's celebration of the 85th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. It was on this very day, in the year 1776, that our forefathers, by the courageous stroke of a pen, severed the bonds binding us to European tyranny, and guided by a succession of the great and inspired leaders this world has ever known. This tiny union of 13 historic states has grown in a short span of years to become a mightier union and a mighty nation. Before beginning the formal ceremonies today, may I introduce to you some dignitaries who, by their presence here today, bring honor to our celebration. First, the Venerable Reverend Mr. Fanning, formerly Minister of the Farmingdale Circuit and Minister of our Minetto Hill Church, and currently Minister of the Smithtown Circuit, has returned to join us today. The Old Bethpage Village Fire Company, under the leadership of their beloved foreman, Mr. Matthew Weiss. Old Rough and Ready, the gentlemen of the Sons of Temperance, and with them the Daughters of Temperance. As we stand outside an inn, okay. The soldiers of the 119th New York Volunteers, who will soon be departing from this village to go to the Southern Front, the 119th. The Old Bethpage Village Brass Band, under the baton of Mr. Edward Albinsky, to whose stirring music we marched, and who will entertain you in concert this afternoon following the ceremony. And as tradition dictates, we have saved the best for last. Please allow me to present the Honorable Mayor, Timothy W. Martin. We would also like to thank Mr. Noon, who's allowed us the use of his shady beer garden and grove today for these festivities. Please show patronage to Mr. Noon following our ceremonies for a glass of refreshment. And with that, to begin our festivities, we will ask Reverend Mr. Fanning to invoke God's blessings on our efforts here today, as well as those of our troops currently engaged in the field against the evils of secession. Mr. Fanning.
Thank you, Mr. Percy. Dear Lord, our divine protector, bless us today as we celebrate this anniversary of our glorious Declaration of Independence. As we celebrate the smashing of the bonds of tyranny and injustice, make us always aware, oh God, that this freedom must be guarded and watched over like a most precious possession, and that's what freedom is, a most precious possession. Brave men died to give us this freedom, and with your help, we will preserve it. Give us the strength and the skill to produce good crops, to reap rich harvests, and let it be, dear God, that those who reap them share generously with your church. Remind us constantly, O Lord, that rich harvests are not reaped by those who squander their time and energy in sin-filled taverns. The only harvest reaped there is the profit made by the tavern keeper. Above all, O God, let us never forget that freedom, full harvests, and all things come to us through your generosity and mercy, and that all things must be enjoyed in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Fanning. We now invite you all to rise for the playing of the Star-Spangled Banner. up Dr. John Searing, our village physician, to read from the Declaration of Independence. Dr. Searing.
Thank you, Bishop. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. John Searing. I'm the town physician. It is my privilege to read this caption for you today. An excerpt from the Declaration of Independence. In Congress, July 4th, 1776. When in the course of human events, it has become necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impelled them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever the government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. The history of the present King of Great Britain has a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having the direct object to the establishment of the absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to the world. He has kept among us, in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislators, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by mock trial from punishment, for cutting off the trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America and General Congress, assembled in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are of the right and ought to be free and independent states, and that they are absolved from the allegiance to the British Crown.
Huzzah!
Now the band will delight you with the playing of Hail Columbia. And now, the special orator for today, our village mayor, Mr. Timothy W. Martin.
Hope everyone's having a wonderful afternoon. Today I'll be reading for you from excerpts from an oration delivered just this morning in 1861 in Jamaica, Queens, from John J. Armstrong. Memorable indeed is the day we celebrate, in the annals of our country, consecrated, as it is to patriotic impulses and proud recollections. It marks the commencement of our existence as a nation and a new era in the government of the world. It is a day when the friends of constitutional liberty and self-government should cheerfully lay aside their differences of opinion and with one common voice unite in demonstrations like this. And when all should assemble not only to pay fitting honors to the memory of those noble men who here erected the Temple of Liberty, but also to ponder upon the great theme of American freedom, to consider how it was won, by what means it has been maintained, and above all, how it may be preserved. We come not to applaud our own works, but to pay a deserved tribute of gratitude and respect to those by whose noble and successful efforts the rights of freedom were vindicated and won. They felt that their struggles were not alone for themselves, but for their children and posterity. The most they could promise themselves was that having placed upon the soil the tree of liberty and moistened its roots with their blood, that their children would gather fruit from its branches. The event we meet to commemorate is all important, not merely as it relates to us as a people, but as it marks one of the great epochs in the history of the world. If the histories of conquerors and princes, there may be much to condemn, and perhaps but little in which the world around us takes an interest, but in the history of liberty, of struggling to be free, of those movements by which freedom is established and perpetuated, there is an interest both deep and genuine, and this interest is felt by us as a nation. This union, the result of this revolution, and the statesmanship of those by whom the Constitution was framed, is no ordinary gift. It imposes upon each citizen's duties of a high and responsible nature, and such as no individual should hesitate to perform. It will not be enough for us to guard with care and attention the bonds by which the Union be kept safe from faction's sword, in order that we may enjoy the blessings it confers. But it is a duty that we owe those who shall come after us, that we transmit it to them unimpaired and full of vigor. By our altars pure and free, by our laws deep-rooted tree, by our past dread memory, by our Washington, by our common parent tongue, by our hopes bright, buoyant, young, by the tie of country strong, we will still be one. Fathers, have ye bled in vain? Ages must we droop in vain? Makers must we rashly stain blessings sent by thee? No, receive our solemn vow, while before thy throne we bow, ever to maintain as now, union, liberty. I thank you, and bid you all a glorious fourth. Huzzah to the Union!
The band will now perform the battle cry of freedom. So to conclude our ceremonies, Reverend Mr. Fanning will now pronounce a benediction.
We thank thee, O Lord, for the blessing of fair weather and a successful start to our day of commemoration. Let the manner in which we continue to celebrate our freedom and the manner in which we use it be pleasing to God and bring him greater glory. Amen.
Our troops from the 119th New York Volunteers will now honor the 85th anniversary of independence with a musket salute. Very unique time. We bid you farewell. Please enjoy the remainder of the festivities today. And please remember what Senator Daniel Webster once said: liberty and union, now and forever, one and inseparable. Hurrah for the Union, and 3 cheers for President Lincoln. Hip hip! Huzzah! Hip hip! Huzzah! Hip hip! Huzzah!